Hello, everyone. If you're joining us for our live session with Dr. Anu today, I've not been on Facebook Live for the longest time, so I'm really delighted to be here with a very special guest. And thank you if you are viewing in with us. And also, if you're watching the replay, thank you very much for joining us. And if you have any questions for today, please feel free to pop that in the comments. We'll try to answer them as much as we can. Okay, so I have the pleasure of introducing our guest today, Dr. Anu, and please give me some time as I have the pleasure of reading and introducing her. So, Dr. Anu Radha Rao is a cybersecurity and cyber safety awareness trainer and facilitator and consultant and educator. And she's very passionate about helping individuals, families, and organizations to stay safer, healthier, and happier online. She has worked with a range of clients, right? Corporates like Tinder, intergovernment organizations like the UN Women, think tanks, nonprofits, and higher education institutes. To raise awareness about identifying and managing cyber threats in our personal and professional lives. So I had the opportunity to, understand some of what Dr. Anu was doing, and I'm like, whoa, there's so much that we don't know about this topic. But one of the very popular programs that Dr. Anu offers is actually on focus for today. So when we can cultivate a positive cyber culture at home, that is going to support our children so much. And Dr. Anu has a PhD in communications and new media from NUS and an MA in political science from JNU India. And she's the associate faculty at the Singapore University of Social Sciences, Public Safety and Security program, where she's a lecturer and research supervisor on cybercrime and cybersecurity. Dr. Anu, or Anu, as I fondly refer to her, very welcome to our live today.
Thank you, Sophie. Thank you for having me here, and thank you for reading out that long introduction as well.
Yeah, thank you for being so patiently allowing me to do that, because it's so beautiful and I just couldn't leave out any detail. So yeah, well, Anu, could you please tell us a little bit more about how you got into this digital space? Like, tell me more about what cyber parenting is and how did your journey begin in this?
Okay, so Sophie, before I begin, I realized I didn't thank you for having me here, because one of my missions, like you said, is to get more people to understand this issue. And I know that parents are at the heart of keeping their children safe and secure. And in this digital age, we often find that we are very dispersed in the sense that we are juggling a lot of technology. And so are our kids. And so it's really important for both parents and kids to understand why we should be learning more about this. So I'm really glad that you gave me this platform so that more parents like you and me understand this topic and that we can together make online spaces safer and happier for our children. I think that's really an important mission, not just for me, but for everyone here.
Yeah,
so
thank you
how
much.
I got started, thank you. How I got started is 5 years ago or 4 years ago, when my child, 4 years ago, when my daughter turned 12, her school gave her a laptop, and immediately my alarm bells rang in my head, because I was like, look, she's 12 now. I've kept her safe and secure with the TV. And now suddenly she has her own laptop. And so I started researching, what can I do to keep her safer? And since then, because it ties into my own academic work, which is looking at the impacts of new technologies on individuals, I just kept going with that. It wasn't called cyber parenting then when I started. It was just me trying to keep my child safer. And then it developed into a program because I just felt that people were struggling. I was struggling. And with my background, I should be able to help other people. And so that's how it began.
Wow, that's amazing. So it came out of love.
Love, out of concern, out of just fear. there's
Mm,
just a lot of bad stuff that happens out there.
yeah.
And because when I researched that. So
Mm,
I'm probably more than people do know about online harms. And
right.
yes, and it just got me thinking, I just need to do more to keep, her safer. And then I started thinking about other parents and other kids, and that's how it sort of snowballed from there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so glad you've gone into that and you've expanded on that to share your knowledge with everyone because I think you're the perfect person with your background and and you support professionals as well and companies. So that's really important. So what challenges did you notice, or what kind of challenges do children face in this new age digital world? I mean, it's so different because when we were growing up, we didn't have to handle all these things, but now children are having to handle both the physical and the digital world. So what sort of challenges are they facing or would face?
Oh, life is really so different now, isn't it, Sophie? I mean, I like to think that when we were growing up, life times was simpler.
Mm,
Uh, you knew what dangers were out there, more or less.
yeah.
Whereas now, when we're in the online world, there's new technology by its very nature changes so quickly. And I think what we need to understand is there are so many more dangers that are associated with it. So I think what is concerning is that dangers multiply and they multiply very rapidly. And we are always going to struggle to keep up. We're never going to know everything. But I think awareness is important. So I would always say that with digital technologies that come into our lives, like just think about it. We have phones, we have tablets, we have laptops, we have desktops, like we have smart watches. We are so deeply embedded in technology. And I just want everyone to think that's great, right? There's so much of good that comes from it. I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm just saying, let us take time to think not so good that's associated. And that is what will keep us safer as we go along.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's true. Yeah. So what have you observed that parents feel are concerning? What is the concern that parents have around for kids?
Right. So I think if I probably didn't answer your previous question as accurately. So let me just quickly go back to that in terms
Yeah.
of what are things that we should be worried about happening here that causes parents and me to be concerned is
Mm-hmm.
this. In Singapore, we see actually very high levels of cyberbullying. So that's something that parents
Okay.
often don't know. Um,
Yeah, I don't.
yeah.
Tell me
Okay.
more.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's quite rampant, and it's
Oh.
because children are on and young people are online a lot. And if they have unresolved issues many times, it's taken out in cyberspace. So
Yes,
yes,
okay.
there's just so many venues for them to vent, and often they vent on others that are more powerless than them. And so
Mm,
it could be their friends, it could be people in school, it could be strangers on the internet. But cyberbullying is a huge problem. So I think that's something that parents in Singapore need to be concerned about, need to know more about.
mhm,
There's also something called online grooming, which is
mm,
when strangers on the internet befriend our children
yeah.
and get them to really trust them. And then often they ask sexual favors in return. So that's something really scary. Like I get like goosebumps now when I'm talking about that, right? So the whole concept of stranger danger,
Mhm.
it's expanded. Earlier it could be people in your physical vicinity. Now it's people
And it
like
could be someone that's not even in Singapore.
exactly.
It's international.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you said that, because people might be thinking, but how can you get sexual favors from children or young people if they're not in the same place? But there's actually a lot of types of online sexual abuse and harassment. Like
Mm,
there's something called sextortion, where young people and even older people are
mm,
lured into sending, compromising pictures of themselves, and
right.
then they're blackmailed that,
Mm,
or those compromising pictures are amongst other groups. And so there's this kind of harassment in the sense that people lose their own photos, and their photos may be morphed into pornographic websites, into pornographic images. So there's a whole bunch of things out there that if we just know a little bit more, we can have that chat with our children,
Yes.
prevent them from doing things, but they mind that says, oh, I know that this is potentially dangerous, and they're a little more aware.
Okay. So you talked about cyberbullying and online grooming. Are there any other things that we need to be aware of?
Yes,
Because I don't know what I don't know.
yes, there are. One of the other things, and I think, and one of the things that is my concern as well is there's a lot of inappropriate content on the internet. So
Okay.
pornographic, violence, excessive and gore, etc., that young children get a hold on way before they should. So that's problematic as well, because I mean, none of us really want especially our younger kids, to get a hold of pornographic material, right? But there actually are ways that young children have access to them. I'll get to that later, how we can probably reduce those chances of that happening, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's one thing. And then maybe just another thing that's largely been talked. So there's addiction to social media, there's addiction to video games, there's addiction to just being on the internet, chatting and chatting a lot. So addictions is another thing that if there's no healthy balance between the online and the offline worlds, it's very easy for young people to get immersed in it. And just to feel that that's their world entirely. That's obviously problematic for many reasons.
Yes. Wow. There actually, so many things to be aware of, and I'm so glad that you're highlighting them. So I would say that of these that you have highlighted, I'm sort of had some observations or noticed what's happening like among my own children and their friends. So I have a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old. They're not that active on social media, but enough to share things with me or for me to observe how these are impacting young people. So in terms of cyberbullying, I've heard of cases where you have kids who are using social media to spite their friends or to tell them otherwise. So for example, we are good friends when we are physically, like in school, and then they start posting things about, we went out to this place, and that child is being excluded. So it's kind of using social media to kind of send a different type of message and maybe make, maybe bully or kind of, cause a lot of stress for the child who's being excluded or is being told otherwise, like saying certain words on social media, posting it. So I've heard about such cases on cyberbullying. And then in terms of inappropriate content, I think it's also about being age appropriate. So it may not be indecency, but maybe some things that are, that the influencers, or we don't know what our kids are watching really, and you can't control that. And I'm observing that the kids are so much more advanced or mature or think that they're mature compared to when I was their age, because they're getting all these information internationally, bypassing parents. You don't have to ask parents because it's just freely there and you can just keep watching and searching. So that's been my experience so far. What about you? Are you observing these with your children as well?
Oh yeah, so I think I always say that my 16-year-old is like my guinea pig for all my cyber parenting, as maybe growing up has had more restrictions than many other kids, because there's always the idea that the internet, your devices, they're all good, but we have to have rules and regulations, and we have to have cutoff times, and we have to have software that prevents you from accessing R21 sites, for example, right? So those are the things that, when they're young, yes, if they understand that it's, that's part of the system, it makes it easier, and you can explain why, that, hey, this is part of just any other rules in the family, right? Like we have rules for meal times, we have rules for play dates, and now we have rules for tech use. So then it becomes more naturalized. And then as they become teenagers and grow more, they're older, then you have to let loose those controls to a certain extent, in the sense that there's still cutoff times. It's not like 24/7. There's no phones in the, for my 16, maybe when she's 18 or 19, that changes. But I think it's just like each parent does things differently. So for me, it's just, I often feel, because when each child is so different. So for me, I often feel like between my two kids, the one that really wants her devices a lot is the one I need to intervene in more to ensure there's a more healthy balance, for example. So those are just some examples of what parents can look out for in being mindful of how much is too much, because social media is known to cause anxiety and depression amongst young people. So do they understand the impacts on them, and can they self-regulate? If not, then a parent or an adult has to step in, because they're still minors and they're still under our care. So just to figure those things out, take some communication and time to work together.
Yeah, certainly. So I like what you said about communication and time. Spend time with your child, have that open communication, maybe decide on rules together to protect them. It's not to restrict them, but more to protect them until which they grow in their maturity. And maybe parent and child can say, okay, this is where we know that we don't need these rules anymore, that we're confident and comfortable with handling that.
Yeah, so, and it's different strokes for different folks, right? It's just like any other parenting thing. Like it's the same basic principles. You just add the cyber element to it, which means like I do know a lot of parents that have a completely hands-off policy, in the sense that they let their child do pretty much whatever they want, and that's, of course, the prerogative of the parent, maybe because it maybe does work for them. And so I'm not there. I also, I'm not there to judge your parenting style, but just remember that leaving children completely unattended on the internet it comes with a lot of dangers. So as long as you are aware and have had the talk, so this talk is not about the birds and the bees, it's a talk, right? Like, how can we all have a cyber culture at home that just makes, is keeps our children happier, safer, and just boundaries around it.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that you're seeing this in such a open, inviting manner, and sort of respecting that every family is different as well. And so really understanding how would you like that cyber culture to be like in your family. How do you want to build that? And most importantly, that open communication, that talk. I just love and appreciate how you're emphasizing on that. So honestly, in my family, we didn't really have any rules. So I'm just one of those parents you were describing. Just that's everything. But it has worked so far. But I guess like what you said, we did talk about it. So it's not that I didn't observe. We did check in, and I guess my kids were not so into, like, they don't have TikTok. They just don't want TikTok, but they're in Insta finally. Right. So and I think they're handling okay. I think and I think we have a communication where they would say, oh, this person, this and that. So yeah, it really varies from family to family. Really, but having that talk is the most important bit. Yeah.
Yes. And I think, like, I mean, I've read your Facebook post, right? Like, you clearly have a good system going with your family. I think it's about like building a culture. So the cyber culture just adds on to the regular culture, which is how are we nurturing our children and ourselves, and it becomes part of just, right? So, and it depends from child to child. Like, some children may not need that kind of supervision. Like you said, they're more hands-off. But for other children, that may be disastrous, because it may lead them down a very difficult road ahead for them later. So I think that's, as long as we have some basics in place and we can discuss what those basics are, I think the talk, the communication, and I think especially as children grow older, and I have found this very difficult personally for myself, because I want to jump in and help for everything. And then my girl is like, no, I will sort it out and I'll come to you if I need help. So just to be there if things go south without judgment is very difficult. to just hold back on that and then just be there for your child. I think that's the learning in the process applies to cyber as well.
Yes, yes, truly. Wow. You're so right. And I never thought of it that way. I keep thinking like it's two different things because I never grew up with that. But now that you're saying it, it has to be part of our parenting. The cyber part is not separate. It is really everything together.
Yes,
So,
yes.
oh, that's a really great information. Yeah, very helpful. So, and I'm really curious, about, for each of the different concerns that you raised, what is one thing that parents can do just to sort of um, have some preventative measures? Before that, I just want to say hi to our listeners, whoever that's joining us right now. If you have any questions, please post that in the comments or just say hi to Dr. Anu and myself. We'd love to hear from you if you just want to post anything in the comments. What is your experience with cyber parenting, or what is your experience at home? Is it something that you found easily integrated into your parenting style, or is it something that you're finding like you need more answers to, or you have some curiosities about? So yeah, if you have any comments, please put that in the chat. We'd like to hear from you, and hopefully I can see the comments as well. If not, we'll definitely reply that when we have the replay. So yeah. Okay, so back to the question, Anu. So firstly, in terms of cyberbullying, what is one thing parents can do to prevent or to support children so they don't get so much affected by that?
I think one thing is just um, have be open in the sense that to let their children know that, hey, anything that's happening to you, you can come and talk to us and we will help you. Because whether a child is a bully or a victim, it means they have some issue that hasn't been resolved, which and they're resorting to these means. Generally, that's that vicious cycle that, so it would be the same. Support them, be there for if they need counseling, because sometimes cyberbullying can be very traumatic. Then, be there for that process to happen, for them to heal. I would say one thing, if you ask one thing, and this is what I have learned, because I wanted to jump in and help my child when she was going through an issue. And again, she said, I will come to you for help, just be on the sidelines. Don't jump in, which I wanted to do, and say, I want to go to the school. And I think it really depends. If it's really severe, go to the school or report it to the if the child is old enough to say, hey, I'm managing myself, respect them, and then intervene when you feel need. It's there's no hard and fast rule. It's observing your child and thinking what works best.
Yeah. Wonderful. And it really boils, what I'm hearing is it really boils down to your good relationship with your child, is maintain that openness and conversation. And be the support for them, be there for them, but not in their face.
And also
right?
avoid that I told you so, because as parents, I keep biting my tongue because I want to say that, and I'm not a perfect parent, right? We're all learning, we're all evolving, and so I'm just like, okay, what would you like from me? So just to kind of flip that switch of from judgment to just being there, support.
Yeah, really
They're going to go and talk to someone else. They're going to talk to strangers. They're going to talk to other people, and that's the worst outcome you would want, given that, like I said, there's just so much of stuff that happens out there. You want them to remain either with you or another trusted adult, an aunt, an uncle, an older cousin, someone trustworthy.
Truly, yeah. I like what you're saying. Yeah. They need to have a trustworthy adult that they can feel comfortable talking to, even if it's an aunt or
yes.
Yeah, certainly.
It doesn't have to be us all the time. We have to let our ego go out of the picture.
Yes, as long as they're, safe with a trusted adult. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I totally agree with you. So that brings me to the next one. So what is one thing that parents can do to sort of support their kids, or sort of have a kind of a preventative measure towards online grooming? So my daughter came back one day from her friend's home. She said, oh, my friend was talking to somebody on Discord and they asked very intimate questions. And I'm like, why is your friend talking to somebody on that about this? So yeah, how could that have been maybe prevented? Because I don't know how that conversation is going to end up, with all those intimate details.
I think your daughter already, like, young people are so smart, like they know these red flags better than we do.
Mm.
So it's, I think, yeah, so we have to understand what those red flags are, which is if,
Mm.
okay, okay, we can't tell older children don't talk to strangers on the internet because they're past that age, right? That they're going to. For younger kids, we can gatekeep, and we should. 12 and below, we definitely should be gatekeeping them much
Mm.
more strictly. But as
Yeah.
they teens, then we have to tell them, hey, this is what you watch out for. This is what they will try. So because it's so easy to, they will try and kind of seduce you in with sweet talk, with compliments, with, try and it psychologically manipulate you. So it's just, again, to have these conversations about, these are, this is what I heard, this is what I believe a groomer does. And I just talk to my kids, asking them, hey, what do you think should be the case if this happens to you? Or have you heard of this? So that we're talking
Yeah.
as in general, and I'm not preaching to them because everyone hates it when mommy preaches. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, so just try and keep it like a, breakfast time talk, just on, like a family discussion. And I think that would be key so that everyone is aware of what's happening.
Mm.
Even if they're talking to strangers, I know my older child does, then at least with the knowledge that they know the red flags and you've done your
Mm.
best to,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's great. So it's important to educate our children and yeah,
and educate ourselves.
and ourselves. Yeah, certainly. We educate ourselves so we can educate them.
Yes, yes, that's what I
Yeah.
advocate, Sophie. In fact, that's the
Mm.
actual thing, that because youngsters learn about this, they learn in school. We
Mm.
haven't had, most adults haven't had this formal education in,
Oh.
I would say, in the 40s and even in the 30s, 40s, 50s age range, right? So that's why the cyber parenting for me, I focus on the adults because they don't know this knowledge. So better late than never, right? It's still good to do. And if you can start when your kids are young, like in primary school, that's even better. Then
Mm-hmm.
all the things that you lay in place, the practices, it becomes part of the routine
Yeah, that's right.
until
Oh,
they're
how
old enough
important.
to say why.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, truly. Okay, and so what's one thing parents can do to help their kids through more discerning, being more discerning about inappropriate content? We really can't control, right? What they watch. Or sometimes I notice when my child, she says like strange, videos are just coming up and she didn't actually search for it, but it just appeared in the YouTube feed. So
Right.
yeah, how can we
Right.
support them in this?
Right. I think one of the first things is that we should rely on technology because there's enough technological options, whether it's a safe search or using a password for NC16 and above for content viewing, or having parental control software so that you have at least one layer of, there's some filters before our child hits the world wide web or wild west, right? It will be like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, so we should use technology and we should use it. There are many options, and I think that is a good thing because as parents, when our children are younger especially, you can't be hovering over them all the time, and you shouldn't.
Mm.
Make your life simple. You should make your life simpler. So use the tools that are available, have the talk with your child, and then when they're older and they're definitely going to be accessing stuff that you don't want them to, just say, hey, just be mindful, take breaks, be aware of its effects on you. And when you notice that something is happening, so I often found that if my child is getting too sucked into something, then I would try and change it to watch something else or view something else, and slightly under the radar, or
Mhm.
or if need to forcibly say, hey, let's stop viewing this for maybe a few weeks and come back to it later, so that there's a bit of a mind space between that kind of
Mm.
content that doesn't look very
Right.
healthy.
Yeah, yeah. So you talked about using the appropriate tools. What is one type of tool or app or software you call it that kind of provides that first layer that you referred to?
Right. So you can use, there's many types of parental control software in the
Mhm.
market. So even if you just Google parental control software, you will have
Okay.
so many, it's like an antivirus software. You have so many options.
Mhm.
So you can pick and choose, try them out and find which works best for you. So you have free options to try, and then you can use them install them in the kids' devices, but having told them that, hey, this is what I'm doing, so that it's not under the radar, right? Like they know that, there is a reason why it's happening, and they know that you're doing this because you don't want them to say access, material, like you said, age inappropriate, or what age, you want them to access age appropriate material as much as possible. Then you have like your search browsers will have safe search options. So you can just make sure, and often if they're connected, they use their laptops for school, the school will have that as part of the safety features. So yeah, so on your end, you can also just do that at home as well. So there's that, and then your Wi-Fi routers also have options. Yeah. And so do your telecom providers have options on their apps as well.
See, there's so many things I don't know.
There's so many things we all don't know. We're all work in progress.
Yeah, that's right. So much to learn.
Yep.
Okay, thank you so much for all these. So there's one more concern that you talked about, which was addiction. So what's one thing that parents can do to support their child or to prevent that?
I think if it's supporting your child, then having a professional involved is the best idea. So I would definitely say that if it's a stage where you can't get your child out of that zone, then a therapist, a counselor, a school counselor, someone else will have to be involved that can help them. But if it's to try and prevent it, is just to make sure that they have a healthy offline life, that there's, and that's where parents play a role, right? Okay, I often pull my child to different activities. We'll go to the dog park, or go to the pool, whatever. Just get them out from their devices in the good old outdoors, however warm it may be here, and just ensure that like we're doing family things together, and everyone's device is put away. Even if you do that weekend, or simple things like no phones during meals. We're here to talk to each other as we eat our meal, so we shouldn't have devices, and all those kind of has that, like our devices don't have to be with us all the time.
Yeah. Well, this is such a great point. I think, wow, having a healthy offline life, I think it's so easy just to forget that, there's more to life than your devices and your YouTube and your Netflix and TikTok and all that. Yeah. And so important for families to really establish that, family activity or sport. If a child is very focused on sport, they have enough out of or to occupy their time than to be on TikTok all the time. So great tips.
Yeah,
really
thank
awesome.
you. Tried and tested.
I've learned so much just talking to you today. My goodness, thank you so much. I'm so glad that you've joined us. So is there any other information that I missed out on that you would like to tell parents about cyber parenting?
I think just the one thing that I probably like to end with, in the sense, because I don't want to make it too heavy, is just kids nowadays especially tend to call us out if we don't walk the talk. So I think it's important that we are good role models ourselves. So and I've learned consciously, like, if possible, whenever possible, unless there's a crazy deadline, if my child comes and talks to me, I put a device. So I say the same thing out of respect. When I'm talking to you, you put away your device, right? But it should be mutual. So they will model the behavior that they see, and their parents are going to be a big part of that. So I would like all of us to think, what are some bad practices maybe that I've been unconsciously following, and just, am I too addicted to my phone? Am I too always on the internet? Am I not being present when my family is around? And I think that's the one thing I would say, and your children will pick up on that.
Wow, this is such a great point, such an important point, and that we are really our role models, and we need to practice what we preach. And it's so important to be present, like when we're talking to them, not like talking, and like still on our device, like wait. Whoa, thank you for highlighting that. It's such an important thing. So, well, tell us a little bit more about like how you help parents, like do you run workshops, and how can you be contacted if somebody would like to, find out more about your services?
Okay, great. So what I do is things, run workshops. I want to have a group, so like a Q&A, a group of parents that come together and you want to create a group and contact them. Hash, just like how Sofie and I have talked today, was to talk about your issues and give you concepts to incorporate in your daily life that will make your life so much easier when it comes to your child in cyber. And I do this as in the form of workshops as well. And if you want to know more about what I do and how I do it, it's available on cybercognizance.com. And you can also check my work on my LinkedIn page, which is very updated, which is PhD. And if you search with cybercognizance, you'll find me. And with those two, you'll get an idea of the kind of work that I do. And you can drop me a line at anuradha.rao@cybercognizance.com. And I look forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, please do. So what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to pop your contact into the comments as well. So yeah, we can have that easily accessible for anyone else who still wants to connect with you. And for those who are still with us, who are with us right now, again, drop us a message, put something in the comment. Was this helpful for you? Do you have any questions for Dr. Anu? Please feel free to do that. I'm not sure if I'm seeing everything, so give me a few minutes before we wrap up in case there are some questions. I'm just gonna pop over to some of our groups where we're live and let's give that a go. I can't really see everything all the time. Oh, there we go. So Jesslyn, thank you for saying hello. Really appreciate that. Thank you for joining us. And if you have any questions, feel free to pop that in the chat as well. Okay, and let me go back to this group. So we've got two groups that are running this at the moment. Okay. All right, so far I haven't seen any questions, but no worries if you're watching the replay, if you have any questions, like something that comes up to mind after we wrap up, please feel free to pop that in the comments and we'll get Dr. Anu to respond as much as we can. Okay, well, thank you very much, Anu, for joining us today. And thank you to all who have joined us live and all who are watching the replay. I think this is a good time for us to wrap up. So I wish you all a very nice evening, day. And remember, the key is to support your children, trust them, be a good role model, and continue to be open and keep that conversation between you and your children. All right. Thank you very much. And hope to see you maybe soon in another live. Bye for now.
Thank you.
All right.